My son does not like hot tea.
They say you should respect your mother-in-law like your own mother if you want your future daughters-in-law to respect you too. But can a mother-in-law truly love you like her real daughter without pretense? Let's see this story.
In a quiet but quickly growing town, where generator sound mixed with evening prayers, Daniel Okafor learned very early that life does not wait for permission before changing your rule. At 24, Daniel was still finding his feet, working a modest job at a logistics company, saving slowly, dreaming carefully. Then one rainy Tuesday evening, his phone rang with the kind of call that rearranges a man's life forever. His father, Mr. Okafor, had slumped in his shop and never made it to the hospital alive. By the end of that week, Daniel buried his father and buried his youth beside him. As the first son, tradition did not ask Daniel if he was ready. It simply handed him responsibility like a crown made of iron. His mother, Mrs. Okafor, became quieter after the burial, her strength turning inward, her dependence growing silently. His two younger siblings were still in school, their needs constant and loud. School fees, rent, food, hospital bills, expectations. Daniel became the breadwinner without ceremony. He took extra shifts, he postponed his own plans, he sent money home before paying his own expenses. When friends talked about investing in themselves, Daniel invested in survival. Whenever his mother looked at him with tired eyes and said, "You are the man of this house now," he felt pride and pressure in equal measure. Loyalty became his compass. Years passed and Daniel's sacrifice did not go unnoticed. He rose steadily at work, became dependable, respected. His family leaned on him fully and unknowingly leaned too hard. He never complained. In his mind, protecting his family was not optional, it was his identity. Then Miriam came into his life. She was confident, warm, modern in her thinking, and deeply affectionate. Miriam admired Daniel's sense of responsibility. To her, it showed character. When he spoke about his mother with reverence, she smiled. When he mentioned helping his siblings, she nodded in understanding. She believed love meant supporting the man you choose. When Daniel proposed, Miriam said yes without hesitation. The wedding was beautiful, modern, simple, joyful. Friends celebrated them as a power couple with promise. Miriam entered marriage believing she was gaining a partner, a home, a future where decisions would be made together. Daniel entered marriage believing he could add a wife to his life without changing anything else. That was the first mistake. From the beginning, Daniel struggled with balance, though he did not yet recognize it as struggle. His mother called daily, sometimes multiple times a day, asking about money, decisions, and even minor household matters. His siblings came around often, unannounced, comfortable in the space Daniel now shared with his wife. Miriam noticed things early. His mother questioned how Miriam cooked, how she arranged the house, how she spoke to Daniel. His siblings felt free to compare her to other women, to suggest how she should behave as a wife. When Miriam raised these issues gently, Daniel brushed them aside. "She means well. That's just how my family is. Please understand them. They've been through a lot." Miriam tried. She adjusted. She stayed quiet. She swallowed her discomfort. She reminded herself that marriage requires patience. But patience, when constantly demanded from only one side, slowly turns into pain. Financial decisions became another battlefield. Daniel sent large portions of his income to his family without discussion. When Miriam suggested planning together, saving for their future, their children, Daniel grew defensive. "They depend on me," he would say. "They have nobody else." What he did not say was that he did not know how to say no. When Miriam became pregnant with their first child, she hoped things would change. Surely now Daniel would see the need for boundaries. But instead, the interference increased. Advice turned into control. Opinions became instructions. Daniel stood in the middle, torn, silent, exhausted, trying to keep peace everywhere and unknowingly breaking it at home. By the time their second child arrived, the cracks were no longer hidden. Miriam felt like a guest in her own marriage. Daniel felt trapped between two worlds, and the house that echoed with laughter now echoed with tension, unsaid words, and quiet tears. The tragedy was not that Daniel did not love his wife. It was that he loved everyone and protected no one properly. And the cost of that confusion was quietly building, waiting for the moment it would demand payment.
The first time Miriam cried herself to sleep, Daniel was lying right beside her. He heard the sniffles, he felt the slight shake of her body, but he pretended to be asleep, telling himself he was too tired to talk, too stressed to handle another complaint. In his mind, tomorrow would be better. Somehow, tomorrow never was. Their home, once warm and playful, became a place of quiet endurance. Miriam stopped explaining herself because explanations changed nothing. Daniel stopped asking questions because answers demanded action. Silence settled between them like a third adult, uninvited but powerful. Daniel's mother now felt comfortable calling Miriam directly. "Why did you buy that brand? Why are you always locking the door? In my time, wives didn't behave like this." At first, Miriam responded politely, then briefly, then not at all. When Daniel came home from work, exhausted, he often found his mother seated comfortably in their living room, issuing instructions while Miriam moved around like an assistant in her own house. If Miriam's face tightened or her tone changed even slightly, Daniel would pull her aside later. "Please, don't disrespect my mother. She has suffered a lot. Try to understand." Miriam would nod, but inside her something hardened. Respect, she realized, had become one-sided. Even the children were not spared. Daniel's mother insisted on how they should be fed, disciplined, dressed. His siblings corrected Miriam in front of her own children. When Miriam protested once, just once, Daniel reacted sharply. "Why are you always fighting my family?" he asked, frustration dripping from his voice. That night, Miriam asked a question that had been sitting on her chest for years. "Daniel, am I your family?" He did not answer immediately, and that pause did more damage than any argument ever could. Financial tension followed emotional distance. Daniel continued sending money home without discussion, even when their own bills stacked up. Miriam began paying some expenses herself, quietly, so the children would not feel the strain. She felt less like a wife and more like a roommate raising children in a house she did not control. Her friends noticed her silence. Her laughter disappeared. Her confidence faded. One evening, after Daniel returned late from his mother's house, Miriam finally spoke with a firmness that surprised even her. "I cannot breathe in this marriage." Daniel snapped back defensively. "So now my family is your problem, after everything they've been through?" Miriam shook her head slowly, tears pooling but not falling. "No, Daniel, I am your problem, and you keep choosing not to see it." That night, Daniel slept on the couch, not because Miriam asked him to, but because the bed no longer felt like a place of rest.
Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The emotional gap widened until even small disagreements felt heavy. Daniel felt like a failure everywhere. Then came the day that broke what was left. Daniel's mother accused Miriam openly, loudly, of turning her son against his family. The argument happened in front of the children. Voices rose. Old sacrifices were thrown like weapons. Miriam stood shaking, humiliated, exposed. Daniel stood there, silent. That silence landed on Miriam like a verdict. That night, after the children slept, Miriam packed bags with steady hands and a broken heart. She did not cry. She had done enough of that already. When Daniel walked into the room and saw the bags, his voice cracked. "What are you doing?" Miriam looked at him, calm but emptied. "I am choosing myself and my children." "You can't just leave," he said, panic creeping in. "I didn't just leave," she replied softly. "I stayed for years, alone." By morning, she was gone with their 2 children. The house felt instantly larger, quieter, emptier. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed staring at the space where his family once existed. And for the first time since his father's death, he felt truly powerless. Not because he had lost money, not because he had failed his family, but because he had lost his home and now had no one left to blame but himself. The first night after Miriam left, Daniel did not sleep. The silence in the house was not peaceful. It was accusing. Every corner reminded him of what he had lost. The toys in the sitting room lay untouched. The children's shoes by the door waited for feet that would not return that morning. Miriam's side of the bed was cold, neatly made, final. For the first time in years, Daniel had no one to attend to, no one to please, no one calling his phone for money, advice, or loyalty. And in that stillness, the truth he had avoided for so long finally found him. He had tried to be a good son. He had tried to be a responsible brother, but he had failed to be a husband. Days turned into weeks. Daniel went through life like a man moving underwater, slow, heavy, distracted. At work, his mind drifted. At home, the walls felt closer. His mother continued to call, asking why he sounded distant, why the house was quiet. For the first time, Daniel did not rush to explain. Instead, he asked himself a question he had never dared to ask before. When did protecting my family start meaning abandoning my own home? One evening, Daniel sat alone and replayed the moments he once dismissed. The times Miriam spoke softly but firmly. The nights she cried quietly beside him. The way she slowly withdrew when she realized her voice held no weight. He remembered the day she asked if she was his family and how his silence answered for him. That memory cut deeper than any accusation. Daniel finally visited Miriam. She lived modestly now, her life simplified, but her eyes clearer. The children ran to him, but there was caution in their joy, as if they were unsure how long he would stay. Miriam greeted him politely, not coldly, but without warmth. He apologized. Not the rushed apologies he once offered to end arguments, but a slow, broken confession. He admitted his fear of disappointing his mother, his inability to set boundaries, his selfish belief that love could survive neglect. I thought keeping everyone happy meant I was doing the right thing. I didn't know I was destroying my home. Miriam listened without interrupting. When he finished, she spoke with calm honesty. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I was disappearing. That truth settled between them like a final test. Daniel knew apologies alone were not enough. This time, he chose action. He spoke to his mother, firmly, respectfully, clearly. He acknowledged her sacrifices, but drew lines that should have existed long ago. He told his siblings that love did not give them control over his marriage. Some reacted with anger, some with shock. For the first time, Daniel did not retreat. He was no longer choosing comfort over correctness. Healing was not immediate. Trust took time. Miriam did not return overnight, but slowly, consistency replaced promises. Boundaries brought peace. Respect returned where fear once lived. And one quiet evening, Miriam and the children came home. Not because Daniel begged, but because he had changed. The house breathed again. Moral lesson. Loyalty without boundaries becomes destruction. A man who tries to protect everyone may end up protecting no one. Marriage does not remove family, but it demands priority. When a home is neglected for too long, it will speak. And when it does, it may live to be heard.